Welcome to episode 264 of the Whatnauts review show, where each week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio drama, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and we talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
Hello.
Hello.
My weekend has been a good one, real chill one. We went to go see
Very nice.
Disney's Haunted Mansion yesterday.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. We did a double
think?
feature of Haunted Mansion and then actual horror movie Talk to Me, which was real gnarly.
There you go. Interesting. Okay.
Have
We
you ever
did
been
not
on the Haunted Mansion, the ride?
Yes, I actually have.
Good.
I've been on that a few times. I did not know that there was already a Haunted Mansion movie out there, apparently starring Eddie Murphy.
You don't
Didn't know
remember
that was a thing. Nope, not at all.
That was a large presence. Maybe I was just watching a lot of Disney Channel at that time.
Hugh and Rachel, my partner, she mentioned it, that she was like, I liked the original one when I was a kid. And I was like, I thought this was the original one. She goes, no. I was like, oh, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well. But yeah, we had a blast with that.
Cool.
But it's been good. It's been a relaxing weekend besides that.
Very nice.
Indeed. What about you? Did you do anything else besides the double feature movie stuff?
I wanted to share with you a fact I learned, just briefly.
Okay.
You remember I said the other week that my roommate, who is a women's tackle football player, was going to the national championships and she was going to be on ESPN too?
Yes.
That was last weekend, but my dad recorded the game and he was showing me some of it yesterday.
That's awesome.
And he knows so much about football. Like, he can explain to me what she's doing, and I live with her, and I can't tell you what it is.
It's like, all right, they're in an I formation. She's running the QB sneak up here. The tight end runs in and get.
Like, he points at her on the screen and says she's a defensive end, and I'm like, how do you know that? How can you tell that's what she's doing when she's just standing there on the grass? But our local team is called the St. Louis Slam. And during the championships, they were mentioning other teams that have played in the Women's Football Alliance recently. Not even an association, an alliance of women football players. Did you know your local team is called the Oklahoma City Lady Force?
The Lady Force.
You can go to a Lady Force game next year.
Interesting. I'll have to look that up and
I
see
had to share that with you.
Where it is, where they play. I bet they play at one of the colleges, stadiums. They are interesting. Huh. Good to know. Well, speaking of good things that are good to know, Melissa, what are we talking about this week?
We are concluding our ongoing monthly coverage of The Good Place. Today we are talking about season 4 of 4.
Fourth and final season of The Good Place. Here we are. We're at the end. We have watched the entirety of The Good Place. I think this was a fun show to watch, especially since we hadn't really done a sitcom on the show. We've done some sitcom exchanges. I know just a week or two ago we covered Futurama. We had you picked out 7 episodes that spanned all 10 seasons that had happened previously. We've done some kind of special things like that, but we haven't done a sitcom to its entirety until now.
Because often they're tricky lengths. They run forever, or it's like, well, it doesn't get good until season 3.
Or season 1 has 52 episodes, and it's just like, what? How? Who knows? Yeah.
How do we cover this? What fits our structure? And The Good Place, with 4 consistently strong seasons and a lot of extra emotion and lore and mythology packed into it, made it the perfect candidate. And this was an excellent journey.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. I know I've mentioned it on when we've covered the previous seasons. That I remember, like, as the show was coming out, that people really enjoyed it. Even the seasons that weren't as well liked were still really well liked. And yeah, I had just never gotten into it, didn't really know what all the hubbub was about. So I'm glad we got to cover it with this. And yeah, now that I've seen the entirety of the show, I have to say it was a great one. It was a good
Hmm.
show indeed. So good stuff with the good
Yeah,
place, you know?
I just finished it this morning. I didn't realize or
Mm,
had forgotten that the finale was an hour long, so I had to wait and do it this morning.
yeah, I was
Ran
not
out of time last
expecting that.
night. I I cried so much when I wasn't expecting to. We had another
Yeah.
recording scheduled for today, and I texted you like, "Can we put the other one first?" And what I really meant was, I think I'm going to cry when I talk about the finale of The Good Place. We have to put that second so I don't have to reset my makeup in between recordings.
Yeah.
That's why we are here at the time we are here, Kyle.
Yeah. Yeah, like it I think this Hazen is a great conclusion to the series. One thing that I've always appreciated about this show is that there is more of a story, like a narrative through
Yes.
line with each of these seasons. And it's not the stereotype of a sitcom where every episode they kind of hit the reset button and you can
Mm,
kind of
mm.
watch whatever episode whenever you want because it doesn't really matter. Uh, Certain ones have that more so or less, but this one really is like, no, we have a story, we have a narrative. It will have your basic sitcom structure, but we actually are telling a story
Mm.
here. And here in its conclusion, I think it does a good job of wrapping everything up, of calling back to not only the original season but the journey that the characters went on.
Mhm.
And I knew it was gonna be an emotional series finale, but yeah, was not expecting it to be like as
Yeah.
emotional as it. Like I think that is one of the biggest successes of the show is this finale,
Yes.
just on an emotional level, incredibly successful. Um,
Mhm. And
Good
it's
stuff. Yeah,
the effect of this show is that it's not just concerned about its characters. It's really trying to leave the audience with a tool to better understand themselves and their relationships and their view on mortality and morality. Like this finale says things that I know I'm going to think about in like 60 years.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, man. I think this finale went to some interesting places, in terms of something that I think has been coming up with you and me when we're on the podcast here, is we've been talking about how shows or a series of movies will have like nice bookends where like
Yes.
something happens in the first movie that is like thematically mirrored in the finale, if
Mm.
you will. And I think this show does a good job of that. Um, some great callbacks to the opening scene, or even just the original experiment that they
Mm.
run in season one, and having our star characters be the ones in charge of
Yeah.
that. It's just a good full circle.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
This is
and
a
then
very
oh, go
no,
ahead.
just the show is very consistent, not only in quality. Like the seasons have
Yeah.
different missions, different settings and goals, but I really don't feel any sort of dip in quality at any time. It's consistent in quality and it's consistent in it never forgets where it was. Like if
Mhm.
there's
Yeah.
something you're thinking about, oh, I'd like to see that again, here it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think also on a more like a smaller scale, like each character also has that like full circle moment. They do a really good job with each character individually.
Yes.
Right. It's not just like, well, it's a good series finale kind of as a whole, but maybe
Mm.
some of the characters didn't get, the closure they needed, or it was glossed over. No, this absolutely
Yes.
spends the time with each character, gives them what they need, puts them in a spot that makes sense for their character, their journey. It's a success. A great show.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely front to back.
Do you want to do a little bit of like a not plots? I mean, I guess a plots synopsis. I always struggle to
Mm.
say what it is on these monthly specials of like, is it like a previously on Lost, right? Like that kind of thing, or is it like here's
this
the
is
plot?
this is what sets this season apart. We are in another afterlife experiment where the goal is that they are going to bring humans into the same experiment that Michael started with. A good place a bad place disguised as a good place, kind of. But they're like, we are going to test the humans more intentionally and see how they improve over their time here. This is what they're trying to prove to the bad place, who's like, everybody's bad. Everybody since like 1200, the year 1200 has gone to hell. Humans aren't good. They're like, humans can become better if you like really give them the right environment, the right resources, the right challenges. Maybe it's not about how good you are, but how much you can improve. So they're doing an actual, okay, we have these 4 case studies. They have to make Chidi one of the case studies. So that's a real struggle for Eleanor, who now has to be the subjective architect
Yeah, they
figure.
wipe his memory. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you see when they're actually trying to make other people better in a more mathematic way, like we have 1 year to prove this to Sean. Otherwise, like the world's going to be rebooted. Maya Rudolph sings that song. I'm going to reboot the earth, reboot the earth. They're like, humans, if it's not working out with humans, we're just going to erase them. We're just going to start over. Welcome to New Earth, new people. And they're like, no, we want to like rebuild. We want to build on what we already have. So it's this race against time to like prove to heaven and hell humans can be good.
Yeah.
We want the afterlife to be a space for them to continue to practice and improve.
Indeed. Yeah. They're like thinking of like, well, we can give them a second chance just by rebooting it. And on paper, yes, that's a second chance. But it's also like there's no change to the system in the way they do all of that stuff. And that's what Michael is trying to fight against. He's like, no, it's not that they just need a second chance. It's that the system by which you're judging them is wrong. That was kind of the focus of season 3. But it's come to a head here where he has presented his case and they're like, all right, we'll hear you out, right? We'll give you one chance to prove that it wasn't just the 4 humans that you had. This is not some fluke experiment, right? But it really can actually be anyone. And yeah, the show takes that to some interesting places, and like I said, has some great callbacks, some interesting twists on that original experiment. Considering now all our 4 main characters are all except Chidi is now in on what's happening here. They're kind of running the place. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff happening with this. Indeed, we had a great time watching this one. So good stuff. Good stuff. Do you have any other kind of non-spoilery things that we should mention?
The show continues to be very, very funny.
Yep,
I was amazed
absolutely.
at how it's like emotion to a 10 and humor to a 10. They never really sacrifice one for the other.
humor that becomes super emotional just by way
Yeah.
of it being a joke that they've had in the entirety of the show. Stuff like that is good. I did have one kind of issue with that. It's not really an issue. It's just something like the show was so purposeful in the way they kind of bring everything to a close that you almost really don't think about a certain aspect. And that's okay. I don't feel like it's an issue, but it's something they just kind of didn't address that I was kind of like, I wonder why they didn't address that. But I'll get more into that when we're in like full on spoilers. But yeah, in general, I had a blast with this. So let's take a quick break for housekeeping. And when we come back, we will dive into all the good spoilery goodness of the Good Place and have a good time there. So we'll be right back. Here at the Whatnauts, we make multiple different shows, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. If you enjoy our shows, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is the best place to show your support. For just $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and at our $3 tier, a Patreon-exclusive podcast, The Pilots Club. You can even get a shout out and thank you on most of our shows at the $5 tier. And if you're one of our patrons already, thank you so much, it means the world to us. You can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in The Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch for video versions of the shows, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something else, head over to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. All right, so we are back. Once again, a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We love you a lot.
Thank you.
It means a ton. Over on the Pilots Club this past month, we talked about a show called Cable Girls. But this next month, Melissa, we are talking about Veronica Mars, the pilot of Veronica Mars. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that one?
During these months, we've been talking about The Good Place. I thought I would take advantage of the fact that this show stars two TV veterans. So 2 months ago, we watched the pilot of Cheers featuring Ted Danson. Thought we'd conclude our journey with the pilot of Veronica Mars starring a young Kristen Bell.
Yeah, sounds good. I think that was a good move there. And it's one that's also another show that I've always heard good things about.
Yeah.
And I think it got it got canceled prematurely or something like that. I don't remember, but I've always heard good things there. But yeah, that's over at the Pilots Club at our $3 tier on Patreon. Right here on the review show, speaking of sitcoms, I already mentioned us covering Futurama. We decided to cover a little like sampler platter of Futurama episodes because it got relaunched a third time on Hulu. So we are now living in an age with new episodes of Futurama, which is pretty cool. Let's see, over on the Reactor Core, of course, we concluded our coverage of Secret Invasion, Marvel's latest show. You can see what we thought of the finale. We did a Barbenheimer spoiler cast, so we covered both Barbie and Oppenheimer and what our experiences was like seeing both of those. And then kind of previously mentioned earlier in the show right before this, we talked about the new Venture Bros movie, Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart, which was a lot of fun. We also covered all of Venture Bros here on the review show early in 2020. So if you'd like to go back and hear all of that, that was the first end of the month special that we did
experiment.
was the Venture Bros. So good
And
stuff
if
with
Venture
that.
Brothers has been my favorite show for 13 years, and we just watched the finale movie, and I thought, I'm going to put that one first because I'm less likely to cry at that one. They'll tell you how truly impactful the Good Place finale is.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. And last but not least, over on the captain's log, who knew that we could have such a long conversation about gum?
We had a
Yes.
lot of topics stored up
Chewable,
because
minty.
nobody talks about gum, so we did all of the talking about gum.
Yeah, indeed. We have a blast over on that show. We even talked about some Eisner Award winners, Beetlejuice 2, and all the bad luck I've been having over the past 2 weeks. So there you go. That's what we talked about over on the Captain's Log this past week. But yeah, that is about it for housekeeping. So let's get into spoilers. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Okay, let's see. So let me just get this like
Yes.
issue thing that I had with the like not an issue. That's not the right word for it. Just a curiosity, I think. Right.
Sure.
So Michael's whole goal is to kind of redo this system, this point system that kind of determines if people go to the good place or the bad place. And it seems like, from what I understand, the people who are kind of initially like down on points and would be sent to the bad place are actually then sent to a staging area, which is this experiment now,
Yes.
right? This like false good place that tests them in different ways that maybe they didn't actually learn during their time on Earth here, or they didn't have the opportunity to, or they thought they were doing some good thing, but because of the complexities of life, like they're actually like they bought a Nestle chocolate bar and didn't realize that Nestle supports like child slavery out in that, right, and stuff like that. And so all of that makes sense. I get that. But then when they implement the new system, they don't really talk about people still failing that experiment. They almost make it seem like everyone is passing. They just don't talk about like, well, of this group, like 5 of them passed, but these 2 did not. And so they have to go to, I'm sure it's happening, but it's just, it's not mentioned.
In the original case, it's Chidi, John, Simone, and Brent. And when at the 1 year cutoff, they find out that Chidi, of course, Chidi, and Simone and John all did become better, sufficiently better. And Brent like lost 1 point, and then they find when they look at like really close at the scale of all of his ups and downs and all his
jumps
point
up
value.
last second,
like right before the clock runs out, he was about to like really be vulnerable and apologize to Chidi for something. And that's Michael's argument, is he didn't improve, but we have no proof that he wouldn't have improved tomorrow if this kept going. And when they make the case for, we have enough proof here, I think we need to put dead people through further tests, really try and coach them into getting into the good place. And many, many Baramies later, you see somebody still talking to Brent. Like he's still a case study.
Right.
Like it just takes him longer. I think for that initial experiment, they had the 1 year timeline. And then it ended up getting approved and extended. And he's just still in the system. He's still in the program. He's still learning. And I really like that idea of you don't know who somebody's going to become tomorrow. Like have hope for them. It takes as long as it takes. You don't want to give up on the potential of somebody learning to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. And yeah, I think them looking at like even the last second, he just barely like, but that spike was ginormous, but it's like you had to like zoom in microscope at the last second. And I like that's thing is, like, even though he didn't get back into positive points, right? He was on a trajectory
Yes.
to get himself there, and like that is also kind of something they don't explore, of like who has a trajectory that looks like they're about to make it but then goes back down
Yeah.
hill, right? Or something that I think the show has a sincerity about and an earnestness too that I appreciate, is again this case of like the last second, like something changes and happens, and in this particular case it is like a true repentance 180. Like, it still takes him some time to figure everything out, but he now recognizes that, like, hey, I need to change. I am working on that, all that stuff. I think just in my own kind of cynicism about life and religion and stuff like that, that's very close to someone like on their deathbed just being like, I accept Jesus into my heart. And it's a system that, like, we can't really know if that works or not. And so I have that like cynicism of like, I guarantee you most of those people are just saying that to do. I don't know. Maybe it does work, but I think it was, and again, not an issue that I had with the show, because it obviously was not focused on that. It was not focused on the fallout of kind of this new system and the people that didn't like pass this new experiment. It just felt like a curiosity that it wasn't explored even just a little bit more. Felt like they had maybe an episode's worth of stuff. But again, that I think in the grand scheme of things is like a minor, just like, interesting that they didn't really explore that. But oh well, what we got was fantastic, right?
It's also like, here in the last handful of episodes, do you want to take time away from our beloved protagonist to spend more time with a very questionable person?
Right. Yeah. So the show really knew what to focus on to make the best possible finale for itself. So yeah.
I thought your issue might have been that when they get to the good place and they find that the good place dulls you after a while, it's too endlessly, infinitely perfect that there's no texture for your brain to rub against. You just sort of, in the words of incredible guest star Lucy Kudrow, you become a glassy-eyed mush person once you get to the good place. And they find that the solution is, what's so special about life on Earth is that it is finite. You are mortal and you die and you go to something else. We need to give that to the residents of the good place so that they have that meaning in their life again. Like, you can die. You can extra double die. After you initially died on Earth, you can go to the good place and walk through these death doors, and then you're just over.
Yeah.
That's the end. You're at peace. And I was wondering if there was going to be some opportunity for a form of reincarnation. Like, what might be a good way to make the good place special is that you can leave and then have a lifetime of this vague sense of having something to look forward to again.
I gotcha.
And I do like that in the final episode, they explore different options for the different people. I like that 3 of our 4 main humans do choose to go through that door and extra double die. But Tahani's like, I want to learn to do what Michael does. I want to stay here and be an architect. I thought that was really neat. That these 4 characters who arrived in the fake good place through these very different situations, these different flaws, these different journeys and methods of death. They don't all have the same method of ending their journey either. I really appreciated that. And I like that the ultimate reward, the ultimate experience you can give Michael is to send him back to Earth. Send him, it seems like, to Arizona, and then he gets to live a human life for the rest of the lifespan of a Ted Danson. I thought that
Yeah.
was really sweet. But yeah, I was wondering if that was going to be like one other option you could take to just go round again. But
Reincarnate. Yeah.
which is also like that's the main fixture of the movie, defending your life. Maybe they're like, we can't do this better than defending your life. Or maybe they're like, that's a little too close to like that's religion. We've been really living in this philosophical space. That's not really what
Yeah.
we're about. Nothing's missing. But like you said, I was just curious if that was going to be something they would touch on.
Yeah. No, I kind of understood the like, yeah, the good place is just this kind of monotonous, boring
Yeah.
place. Because that is the thing. Like, again, I grew up Christian. I'm no longer one, but that was the thing. Like, some of the songs we would sing, or like the scriptures we would look at. Yeah, paint heaven to be this place where you're always singing, and you're always, and it's like, I'm not good at singing. Like, I don't want to do that, right? And so yeah, I can see it, like, if it is this existence of just always doing the same things over and over and over, that's monotonous. Like,
Right. Like even
that
if
does not
it's
sound good.
even if it's infinite, it's like, well, like I've been to the ancient Acropolis like 20 times now. I'm good on ancient Acropolis. Or Jason's journey, the first of the characters to reach the state of peace, which is amazing that he's the first one. Goofy, silly, dumbass little Jason. And his goal, when he can do anything in the world, he goes to a big stadium. His dad is there cheering him on, and he plays a perfect Madden game. He's not
Yeah.
even literally playing football. He does not win the Super Bowl for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He just does it in Madden.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is, you can imagine there's more that Jason could go on to do, but he's reached what he needed. He's reached his final point where he's like, I'm good on living. I'm done. I don't need anything else. And when he's trying to explain it to Eleanor and Chidi, he says, I reached this point where things felt different when the air in my lungs felt the same as the air outside my body. That's so specific and poignant, and that's one of those things I'm going to think of forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just this moment of serenity where he's like, yeah, okay, there it is. I've done everything that I've wanted to do. There is a sense of completion, right? Just I feel complete, and I think that I think is an interesting view of the afterlife, or of heaven, if you will, the good place. That, yeah, like, that is also kind of one of the themes that was in there, like, taught to me growing up. Like, you won't have wants or need, like, you'll be complete, like, all of that stuff, like, everything's gonna be perfect. And like, that is essentially what we're chasing, is this like sense of completion. And I guess something that the show also doesn't necessarily explicitly talk about is, yeah, like, not everyone gets to do everything they want to do in life here. And so creating a good place where they can then complete all of that stuff and accomplish those things on their own timeline, and then just kind of go off into the void and cease to be, like, that seems, in the most like platonic sense of an afterlife, that seems to be like the most covers all religions and afterlives and philosophies of just like, you're done, you're complete, everything is perfect, there's no wants, there's no needs, there's no more desires, you exist, and then maybe you don't. So I thought that was actually a nice way to put things and describe things, so I didn't really have an issue with that.
No, I loved it. I thought that was incredible what he says. Not just wonderful words, but wonderful coming from Jason. And I like that later you find out, like, he made Janet a necklace and he like dropped it in the woods, and then he goes off to try and find it when she thought he went through the door. And like Baramies later, he comes out like, Janet, hey, I found the necklace. She's like, you've been out here the whole time? He's like, yeah, I just waited for you to come back. And he's like, it wasn't hard to wait. I just, like walked among the trees and I skipped rocks and I listened to the wind. And she's like, oh, you became a monk. Like his journey, he has this really nice full circle moment, right? Where he's lost his impulsiveness. He truly has become this very peaceful, thoughtful person. And I thought that was really lovely. He's like, I just wanted to see you one more time. Now I'm good. Bye.
Yeah. Which is also like I like the full circle journey that takes, that he does essentially become a monk. But it's also strange. Like, why didn't you just walk back into town? Well, like you
yeah, you can just summon her. You can just say, hey, Janet,
right?
I found the necklace. Here you go. Goodbye, Janet.
One more detail with that is that as people come to their moment that they realize they need to move on and enter this void of nothingness, right? They get escorted by a Janet, but he mentions it's not always the same Janet.
Yeah.
And so he's been waiting for the one that he knows and the one that he fell in love with. Which is, I think, also a nice detail, too, especially since they're all identical and often have the same mannerisms if they are the same kind of Janet. So, yeah, that was a touching moment for sure. But, yeah, I like that he does just get to be calm and serene and just not say anything, not throw any Molotov cocktails, not play Madden, right?
Two other things about Jason's journey this season.
Just sitting on the dock of the bay.
Right. When we get to the Good Place, we never got to see where he would live in the original Good Place experiment. He just lived in Tahani's mansion. Here we see the place he most wants to live, which is inside.
We got the monk's hut, right? Which is not.
Well, but it's not his. He just makes his bud hole inside Tahani's mansion or wherever it is he wants to live. We see the place he most wants to call home is inside stupid Nick's wing dump.
Yeah, right next to the ATM machine, he has his bed. Oh, good Lord.
I love that so much. I really relate to wanting to live inside of a restaurant. That felt very specific to me. And I love, there's always been this deep, quiet sadness to Jason that's not necessarily what he has, but like how you and the characters react to Jason.
Sure.
Like he just goes on his merry way, and like there's things that happen to him that the other characters realize would be so absolutely haunting if he wasn't just so simple and sweet and like purposeful in his life. Like he mentioned something about doing something with his dad when he was a kid, and they're like, Jason, you never really talked about your mom. And he's like, well, my mom died when I was really young. We lost her to the big sea. That's what we called the crocodile behind my house. Just kidding, it was cancer.
Right, and then swims off. Let's play Marco Polo.
Oh.
God, yeah, it's he has just this obliviousness to how things should affect him emotionally.
Yeah.
He gets emotional, he gets excited about things, he knows how to express love, and even when the relationship wasn't working, he had trepidation about stuff, right? He was like, hey, this doesn't feel good, this hurts, I don't want to do that, we need to talk about this. So he has a certain level of emotional maturity to get him by when he really needs to. But the way he kind of deflects with his humor doesn't actually feel like a deflection. It does feel more just kind of oblivious. Just this, I don't really understand what's going on. We know he does, but it just right. It's like the big C. That's what we named the crocodile behind my house. just kidding, it was cancer. Right? And then like
Just how he
runs
says
off. Yeah.
everything exactly like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Just man, it's just like you what? You can't just leave on you can't be excited about saying it was just kidding cancer. No, it's not how this works.
My favorite episode this season, I think, besides the miracle that is the finale, is the episode where they give each other the funerals they never got to have on Earth. I think that
Yeah.
episode's so sweet. Everybody does it like their own specific personal way. I really like them outright stating like the gratitude that Eleanor and Jason have always had for each other as being like trash bros.
Right? Yeah.
And it really like when they have to give these eulogies to each other, it is a nice way to like specifically say something that the feeling has been there for. Like I like when Tawny
Mhm.
is doing Eleanor's funeral. Well, Eleanor just like lays there in a beach chair
Yeah.
in like a novelty t-shirt.
Weekend at Bernie's style, right?
And Tahani says, you know, whether she was like into making fun of me or objectifying me or whatever, Eleanor always made me feel seen. You know, Tahani is always talking about other people. Like she felt invisible in her family. Like her sister never saw her. Her parents never saw her. For as much as she name drops all these celebrities,
Mhm.
there really aren't examples of anybody thinking anything back to her. We never see like a flashback to, we never see what like Tahani's literal funeral would have been on Earth if like Adele is there saying, oh, Tahani was so lovely. Every time I got to hang out with her, I'm really going to miss Tahani. Like Tahani does feel like she just sort of tries to look at herself so much. She's so self-interested because who else is going to be interested in her? And I think it's a very nice description for the relationship those two have, is that Eleanor is always fascinated by Tahani in any various ways, whether it's like,
Yeah.
oh, she's such a snob, or she's so hot, or she's always dropping names so obnoxious, but like she really loves her. I really like the bond between those two. I think they're very sweet.
Yeah. This show nailed that completely, and yeah, I think this one really highlights it, but also just again to go back to when each character kind of decides to leave and do their own thing, just how emotional it is for each of them to deal with that, and for you as a viewer, how much
Yes.
like you were being affected by all of
Yeah.
these connections. Like I don't think the finale like sneaks up on you, but it almost does with just how
Yeah.
emotional it really is. I think because like through most of the season these seasons we've seen the romance kind of blossom between Eleanor and Haiti, and even then sometimes I don't want to say they have difficulty expressing it, but it was season 3, right? They have that scene where they're like hiding behind the bar as the demons come in and attack, and she's just like, look, if we're about to die again, like I need to say that like I'm in love, like even in a moment like that when she is expressing it, it felt almost like a last resort thing. Like I hoped we would have gotten more time to do this more naturally, but we don't. So here it is, right? But we get these moments that are kind of stunted, or she realizes she's in love with him, but he might not be in love with her just yet, or he might not remember, or stuff like that. And then when it's obvious that he is ready to go, just how emotional she get like immediately, and she panics and tries to make this like everlasting, the greatest date ever, right? We're gonna do everything you've already done, but 20 times more, right?
Yes.
And just doesn't want it to end, and she's sobbing when he's like, look, you need to stop, like I this is it. Like I
I
need to go. And she's so
I,
stuck of just like, I know, like I don't want this to be the case.
I
Um
really like that she does come to it on her own. Like she confesses to him like, I've been alone my whole life. I can't be alone for the rest of eternity. And he's like, okay, I can stay. Like living in the good place. It's certainly not harmful. It's not damaging you. It's just making you sort of dull and glassy. So he's like, I guess I can stay for Eleanor. And
yeah.
then she comes to him with uh this metaphor adopted from What We Owe to Each Other, where she's like, I owe you letting you go when you are ready. I can
Yeah.
have this rule of cheaties must never leave Eleanor's because it'll make Eleanor's sad, but over 1,000 years I could never justify it, so I have to let you go. And they're sitting there on that beautiful little deck love seat watching the sunset, and she asks him to say something comforting from like one of the philosophers, like an Aristotle or a Socrates. And he's like, well, that isn't really what they did. But in Eastern philosophy, in like Buddhism, they have this adage of, you look out at the sea, you see a wave. You can prove the wave is there. It's measurable. This is how tall it is.
Yeah.
This is how long it lasted. And then the wave will disappear and it'll just go back to being water again. The wave was absolutely there and then it's just not there, but the water's still there. And the wave was just a different way for the water to be for a little while. It's like, I was, made out of the universe and going back to the universe. And she asks him, the final thing I want you to do for me is say goodbye now and be gone before I wake up. And then she wakes up and next to her on the bed is a sexy cheaty calendar.
Amazing. It's so good.
that's such a good capper to that scene. That was so every goodbye that these characters have with each other, because we have to see so many different kinds of goodbyes between different combinations of characters, which is not something a finale typically does. This is a really unique format. This is a narrative style you are not prepared for. Having to have like the moment
like
you would have in one
emotional
finale is
cycle
like you have
multiple
to
times.
right.
Yeah.
You have to have this like finale moment like 4 times over the course of this episode. It really like struck me every
when they
time.
just like walk in the church at the end and everyone is hugging and fades to white. Right. It's just like, no,
but you have to do it 4 times.
Everyone walking in to the church and it fades to white every single time, right?
And for a show, you and I are both watching this for the first time. I just got to know these people 4 months ago, but that's how efficient this show is, how well casted and performed and written it is, that it hits you so hard, like very quickly. I was like, these people are my friends. I tend to watch the show when we were going for our monthly ongoing series in like the week or two before we record the episode.
Yeah.
So the memories are still pretty fresh in my mind. So I like watch a show and then I'll take like 2 or 3 weeks off and then I'll watch it again, which has been very helpful to me. I like the structure of watching a show where I make myself finish it within a specific time frame. I never lose the thread on it, but also I can't binge the whole thing in a weekend and then it all just blips out of my head because I experienced it too fast. Like coming back towards the end of every month, it's like, oh boy, I get to see my friends again. The friendship these characters have with each other that like resonates back to you is really remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. I was almost thinking that Chidi and Eleanor would go together. That also felt like a fitting end for them. But that was not the case. And I think it was more emotional as a result, right? That he was ready and has been ready for a long time. And he's just kind of gotten to the point where he has to say something, right? And that's when she clues in like, oh, he said we need to talk. I know what that means. And I think, even to go back to Tahani, where she left off, that is kind of, again, the like perfect circle journey for her, right? Of being so self-absorbed, so self-important, trying to self-actualize her
Yes.
importance by name dropping all of these people to genuinely being selfless and being like, you know what, I want to be an architect so that I can help other people get to where we got. Like just a complete 180 of her character. And yeah, I thought that was fantastic.
It's so much growth, but it's also so right with everything we've known about her the whole time. Where at the beginning, she's such a show off and she's like dressed perfectly and she's all this etiquette and she can throw these fancy parties with all these little macarons and dainty little forks and ice sculptures and everything. I liked seeing that she went on a journey of taking that expertise in that thing and learning like, what else can I be an expert in, and going into like really sort of practical, hands-on, undainty things like you wouldn't have imagined she did before.
Woodworking with Nick Offerman, right?
Right. I love the Nick Offerman cameo. Is the ultimate woodworker she can learn from. She's there in her overalls. Like, yes, I built that chair from hand. Then you see the list of other stuff she wanted to do, and it's like, I want to free solo all the way up the Colossus of Rhodes. It's fun to see her keep challenging herself. And I did really appreciate that everybody's journey is unique. And her journey ends with her saying, no, there's still more I can challenge myself with. I'm going to keep at it.
And her secret 1001 thing was to objectify Eleanor. You got a banging bod.
Right.
She's just like,
I love it. And I love that that's Eleanor's final request from Janet. She makes Janet say as she walks into the final door of death, I hate seeing you walk through the door into the infinite nothingness. I'd love to watch you leave.
Yeah. Yep, indeed. They had fun.
I want to shout out one of my favorite jokes, maybe out of the whole series, which is in the beginning of the season when they're still leading those humans through, like trying to coach them into being better people. And they've like split them up into groups, and Tahani's in charge of throwing like a party for him at a lake house. And she's imagining what they're going to do. And she's like, finger sandwiches. No, finger sandwiches at a lake house. What am I, Welsh? And Eleanor says, are you? I don't know. No, right? I love that Tahani makes like the same pattern of joke over and over again. And this is the season where everybody like reacts on it. Like she's done the blank. What am I? Blank before. And now Eleanor's like, I don't know. What's the answer? You gotta tell me. I don't know if you aren't.
Spending multiple Jeremys of eternity with each other. Right. She's still just, there's certain things that they just don't know about each other because they haven't talked about it.
And I love when she makes a joke and like her like what she thinks is going to be her goodbye party before she decides to stay and become an architect. That they like quote exactly what she's going to say back to her. And I love the escalation of being tied to all of these famous people. Like she's dropped so many different famous people to be her like godparents or her mentors across these seasons, and it culminates in Big Ben being one of her godfathers,
her uncles,
and they're like, how is Big Ben the clock tower one of your godfathers?
She's run out of celebrities. She's scraping rock bottom.
Monuments.
Yeah. Hopefully no one knows it's named after a person, right? Big Ben. So maybe, right? Yeah. You know.
So there's the journey all of our main characters go on. And I really like how much they give to all these supporting characters. Like, I really like that Vicky becomes the new trainer for these demons who have to learn to pivot into designing these challenges, like not torture the way they have been, but giving somebody a challenge that they can learn to overcome to see if they do get to the good place or not. I really appreciated that after all the time she's been there, after how many repeats and reboots of the experiment that she went through as just one of Michael's demon actors, that she's learned a lot and she's good at what she does. I think that's a great use of her. And I love that Eleanor's final thing that she feels like she has to do before she can like cross over and leave the good place is that she's like, I have to go back to Mindy St. Clair, who's been all alone in the medium place, just her and a million reboots of
Derek.
Derek. Great uses of Derek this season.
Yeah.
I love when he gets murdered and then like his image pops up, his like floating head, just like Janet's did when she was murdered. And he has it all wrong. Like, I have been Derek. Murder has been me.
Yeah.
How many different things he has in his martini glass.
Yep.
I love
Scrabble
tracking
chips.
that. Right. Just entirely
An
sprinkles,
onion.
which is the thing I did once as a child. I just drank
Hell yeah.
drank in big finger quotes, straight sprinkles out of a champagne flute I found in our basement. I love that Eleanor's final thing she feels like she needs to do is to see if Mindy can go through what she went through. It's like, I feel like we're cut from the same cloth. Like, there, but for the grace of God, go I, as you, living alone in like a 1983 house in a wasteland with just a Derek. Just like, you need to develop the same relationships I did. I've learned how helpful that is, even for people who are used to being alone. Like, you need these other connections. You need people who can encourage you to do better. And I think you can and should get into the good place. I really liked coming back to that. I've always appreciated that they use Mindy St. Clair in the medium place as this like magic hat that they can pull stuff out of. Like, there's the medium place is the solution to a lot of different questions. They use it as like a fulcrum for a lot of plots.
Yeah.
And I like that they always do right by Mindy. Like, they really try and do something for Mindy as the keeper of this place. Like, we brought you a Derek, we brought you cocaine.
Her a whole bunch of cocaine,
I appreciate that the show really puts the work into showing, going back and like helping people who have helped you along the way, showing the gratitude, not like it's making its philosophy and its comedy callbackiness the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, what if we saw Jason's funny friend Pillboy again, and Pillboy was sincerely grateful for how Jason helped him on the road to becoming a good person and getting into heaven.
But we're all ghosts. Ghosts are all white. Damn, are ghosts racist?
Why are ghosts white if I'm not white?
Yeah, they like, that is what I was talking about earlier with like some of the jokes from the entirety of this season come back in a real emotional way. That sexy cheaty calendar. And like you see that and just like immediately start crying because it's like, oh, they love each other, but also it's like him in a like fireman outfit and him in a teacher's outfit, a postal worker outfit, right? It's all that.
He was a wrestler. It's
just like, oh no, this is ridiculous.
I also loved seeing how a calendar of Baramies looks very different than a regular calendar. Like, there's pieces missing. It like loops back around and squiggles. That's just
there's
cool
an odd,
graphic
like,
design. Right. It's
angle
diagonal.
in the whole thing. Yeah.
I love that when she's trying to spice up their relationship to get him to stay, she asks Janet to make a bed shaped like a highlighter and make her an edible valedictorian robe. One of my favorite jokes, another thing I deeply related to, in addition to wanting to live in a restaurant. Mine wasn't a stupid Nick's Wing Dump. Mine was an Outback Steakhouse that closed. And it had like a big front patio where you would wait to get a table. I wish they tore it down. It's like a tire store now.
That Dairy Queen from Guardians of the Galaxy would also be up there on the list for Melissa.
No, I wanted to live in the abandoned Outback Steakhouse because then I could have a big, beautiful porch. But it's closed. It's dead now. I can't live there. I also really related to the bit where we flash back and we spend a little bit more time with Chidi in his past, which we got to like meet his parents. We'd never gotten that time with him before like that, where he's talking to that ex-girlfriend who's kind of having problems with, and he recommends, hey, you know what? This philosopher had something about this in this book. And she says, we're not a book club. And he's like, we're not a book club. I know that's what any major Right. That's what any major relationship in my life is going to turn into.
not a book club.
Right.
Yeah.
There's
Man.
so many bits. There's so many wonderful little like that really hit me emotionally, or I think that's very, very funny. And I'm going to
Mhm.
think about it for a long time. I love Jason's list of people who they should try and see if they can coach through the experiment to get into the good place. And he's like, we gotta get Pikachu. We
Yeah.
gotta get Blake Bortles. We gotta get Mini Me and Fat Bastard. Like it's all these fictional characters he thinks are real and are good people.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear Jason's argument for no, I think I can get Fat Bastard into heaven.
Oh man, yeah, they have so many good moments in this finale. I think we've primarily talked about that, but yeah, I do want to mention a few good
Yes.
things that I liked from earlier on in the season 2. When they are running the experiment and it's not working, they're trying to teach Brent how to be a better person, and he is just the worst. He is, and like cartoonishly so, like he just feels like a caricature. Even in the small amount of time that we get to see him and spend time with him, the jokes that they build up with him, fantastic. Just him always mentioning that he went to a certain school.
He went to
I forget
Princeton.
which one. Exactly.
How dare
Thank
you forget,
Brent? Yeah, just that he's consistent on that stuff is really funny. I like how they then try to redo some of the antics of the first experiment on him to make it work, and so they do all of the stuff that he had been mentioning that is the chaos that happens the next day, all those like giant monsters and people flying in every way. I liked the older lady who was secretly the demon, the one dude who can never have his shirt on, who just all of a sudden just starts punching people and like throwing them around and flying. Just a great moment when they discover him. And so he just like, all right, fight. And just starts beating everyone up. Yeah, like stuff like that I think was fantastic. I do think that they really did have some interesting moments when those characters start to figure it out of like something is up here. Something is not right. This guy's not a monk. What's happening here? He's not supposed to be here, which confirms my suspicion that something is up here.
Also, we've gotten a little bit less of Chidi and Jason together than other configurations of the characters in previous seasons. I loved how much time they got to spend together in the experiment in the earlier part of this season. Like when they danced together to a song that Jason recorded while being chased by a cop car.
Yep. Fun fact, those cop noises are real. I was recording in the backseat of my Uber. Yeah, I mean they have a blast. I think they even make reference to when Michael tried to be cool and he had the earrings and the like, just the smaller callbacks to things that didn't even get much screen time, right? Just the like, oh, here was that one scene where he tried to be cool. Yeah, I mean, they do a really successful job. I think the conversation that Brent has with Chidi at the end there to really make him realize that, like, look, dude, you're not gonna make it. I think ended up being a real heartfelt conversation. I think even kind of before that, just the kind of reality of him falling down this hole and he's stuck on the wall of this pit, and the other characters just not really wanting to help him because this guy had his chance in life and he's now basically had his chance in death to improve and just not learning, period. And even if he is doing good deeds, what they do is they like trick him into doing that, but the motivation isn't there really, right? So they're still just like, yeah, this guy's not a good person, hasn't learned anything, and they just leave. They just go somewhere else, right? And leave him to like, well, I guess this is the good place, but would be a better place if he isn't there, right? And then yeah, just shows how much Chidi truly does care about everyone, not just the people he was with in the original experiment, but he just wants to help people.
Yeah, it was nice to see, after all this talk of theory, an opportunity for him to get to do something in practice on that scale of, I'm going to help rescue this man from a hell pit.
As I recently learned that a man named Oppenheimer may or may not have said theory can only get you so far, right? It's good for him to have a practical moment where he needs to put all of that into play. Yeah, I think even with what happens with Michael and his journey to get to become a human is fantastic. I'll come back to that in a sec. But even for Janet, her like whole circle moment, getting to see Jason one more time, like, oh, she's so happy, she's so excited. But it's another like bittersweet moment, but it is also closure for her, as she also explains, like, I experience time differently.
Yeah,
like I'm experiencing it all at once. So it is goodbye, but it's not goodbye. I'm meeting you for the first time right now. Like I get to spend my existence with you no matter what.
Yes. That's
so
so sweet. I think they make very good use of how Janet isn't a being the way anybody else is a being, which is something the show like never loses sight of. That she, like that's how they find
about
out.
Disco Janet.
I love Disco Janet. I love getting to see all the different Janets. I would have taken more. There's that point at like the beginning of season. It's like end of season 1 where they like go to the button on the beach and murder her, or the beginning of season 2 where they keep rebooting the experiment, but you see a bunch of different Janets. And then we settled into, in terms of costuming, and then we settled into one Janet long term. Like, oh, I kind of miss the opportunity for costume change. But I do love that when you see her and Jason cuddling together in bed, that he's wearing like a pajama top. He's wearing like a tank top that's like the same pattern as her like little scarf thing. I think it's cute that they started dressing like each other.
Yeah, matching pajamas.
Very sweet. I did love seeing all the Janets work together, seeing bad Janet come along to their side. Like not like still hating humans, but agreeing the system is broken. We can't be judging them the way we have been judging them. Yeah. I am willing to cooperate to hiding the universe ending button from Judge Maya Rudolph. I love that she keeps talking about the show Justified, and then they have to summon actual Timothy Oliphant to try and get through to her.
Yep. She mentions all sorts of shows. She mentions The Leftovers. She met like another show that we've watched here on the podcast for our end of the month specials.
A very appropriate cousin to The Good Place.
Yeah.
The Leftovers is.
Indeed. To get back to Michael, though, at the end, this is, I think, one of the more emotional, like surprisingly emotional moments of when this seemingly random person ends up with his mail the building over, and he at first throws it out, but then it's like, no, I should probably go deliver that, and delivers it to Michael, who's just having a blast discovering that things can be hot and that it hurts when you touch them, and discovering
so happy.
Right. Yeah. What was the when he steps into being a human? What's the building that he's in front of? Do we know?
I don't know if we know what it is, but
there was something about that scene that I think that made me really, really laugh. And I think it was just kind of the irony of like where he was or what he was wearing or something like that. I don't remember now.
He's outside on a street somewhere, and he manifests in front of these planters that have cacti in them. And he's like, oh, it's hot, but it's a dry heat.
Oh, yes.
Like he loves the mundanity of human existence. It really seems like he got sent to Eleanor's hometown of Arizona, home state of Arizona. I love that he gets a big dog and names it Jason.
Right. Yeah. But like it's him, his first words as a human. It's hot, but it's dry heat is like the most like small talk about the weather. Right. It's hot. It's related like, and he just like something about that being the first thing that he says as a human is just made me laugh. Like, I was like, this is so dumb, but it's great. It's perfect.
That's what he loves.
It's so
like
innocuous. Yeah.
There's the museum of like human stuff he collected during his time on Earth, and he's like, my paper clips.
Right? He's emotional over his paper clips.
The piece of mail that this guy gives him is just like, you now have a reward card at the local grocery store. And he's like, oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, he's so happy just about every little small thing. And the guy's like, all right, take it easy. And then he stops and is just like, no, I will do you one better. Take it, sleazy. And that's it. That's the show. That's how it ends. And
that's the end.
I think, yeah, that is a great ending to the show. Him just giddy with excitement and joy over the small things, and just being like, you know what? Just take it sleazy. Just have fun. Live life.
Absolutely. And I like that that's what happens after you step through that final door. We see what happens with Eleanor, where she just sort of turns into embers and like floats throughout the universe, and little ember floats down and floats down to that guy who like got the wrong piece of mail, threw it away, thinks about it again, picks it up, takes it to the guy. It's like, hey, I got your mail. And like that guy happens to be Michael. You know, whether there's any sort of control in that or if it's entirely happenstance, you don't know. But it's very sweet that like when you die, first off, the concept of when you die, you get the chance to keep practicing and learning to be better. And you get to make all sorts of new friends and keep growing. But then if you also in this narrative, this like truly final death where you dissolve into absolute nothingness, you're really nothing. You just go back, you become energy in the universe, you become coincidence and serendipity and happenstance. And if you were good, just that little tiny spark of you can make something in the world better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if I have much else to say. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed this show.
Thoroughly enjoyable. I can't see myself watching it again in the future. It's really warm, really comforting. I'm sure there's so much going on. Like I'm gonna like pick up on new nuance or see a little background gag I missed the first time, or get to appreciate a character dynamic better. And I can definitely see myself turning to the show or thinking about this in times of trouble.
Sure.
You know, like 30 years from now when my parents die, I'm going to remember what Chidi had to say about waves just being the way water is for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. I forget what I was about to say just a little earlier, but yeah, I think that's it. We had a blast with
the place was good.
One. The place was good indeed. We've decided. Yeah, so I highly recommend it. Go check it out. Let me see if I can pull up bingo here. Bingo,
What do we got?
bingo, bango, bongo. There it is. Bingo up on the screen right now, so you guys can see where our bingo sheets are. Man, I don't know if we got anything. Did we get any kind of conspiracy board? That I think is one of the closest things that we could have gotten this
We
season.
had one in the Venture Brothers movie, but since we covered that under Reactor Core, we aren't able to include it here.
Yeah. And he kind of didn't realize my own strength. I don't think so.
Oh, really?
And it might be yet another week without like a substantial bingo update.
That's okay. We still have time.
That is okay. Indeed. Well, yeah. Melissa, let's get back to recommendations. When we're doing our end of the month specials, we like to do them at the first and the last time that we cover something. I don't entirely remember all the stuff that we mentioned in the first one. But
I know mine were Defending Your Life, which I mentioned earlier, in the TV show Good Omens, which now has a new season that just came out on Friday that you can watch. If you're interested more in the sort of bureaucracy of a heaven and a hell and these sort of otherworldly beings learning to appreciate the really mundane details of life on Earth and learning to love humans and side with them over a heaven or hell that they may be born from, turn to Good Omens for that. And we mentioned Futurama. I think Futurama is also like a nice match. It's definitely more of like a classic sitcom. It's not as overall sweet, but it has, in its more episodic nature, like really incredible emotional one-shot episodes. Like it uses the sci-fi and the speculative fiction to tell really touching stories about the relationships between its characters. That is a show that I am greatly fond of. It does feel like family. It feels like comfort. And now there's no more new stuff. So pick up any Futurama.
Hey, gang,
start Futurama anywhere. Good news, everyone.
Yeah.
I also want to mention something I'm going to mention it and then I'm going to let you take it from here. Just a couple episodes ago, we read the graphic novel, The Mini Deaths of Lila Starr, which I think also is a very introspective, philosophical work on what mortality means.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is one of my favorite comics of all time. It's a story about the goddess of death basically being fired from her job and then having to live her retirement, the remainder of her existence as a human, but immediately dies again. And she goes to live as a human while also trying to find the person that invents immortality and tries to kill them. But like I said, she dies, and then the god of life resurrects her, and this cycle keeps kind of happening of she has another chance encounter with this guy that invents immortality. She's supposed to kill him, but she doesn't, and then she dies, and then she gets resurrected and has a chance encounter with it, right? But yeah, it is a surprisingly emotional gut punch in only 5 issues. Just the amount that it kind of emotionally affected me. I don't totally understand. I don't think I've been that close to death. I know I've had family members pass away and friends and stuff like that, but there's a certain distance to some of that. So it affected me in a way that I was just like, wow, I was not expecting this. Kind of like how the finale of this show is just surprisingly emotional. So yeah, that is definitely a good recommendation. The Many Deaths of Lila Starr by Ram V and Felipe Andrade.
And it's a standalone. It's not
Yeah,
very long. You can pick it up and read it quickly, but it'll stay with you for a long time.
indeed. Yeah. Um, I think I probably recommended these early on when we talked about this show, but I would also go back to Community. I think the
Mhm.
level of continuity is very similar in both of those shows. Um, and the growth that some of those characters get to have is really good. It's interesting and it's fun to see how they just start as kind of random people they meet, and they end up forming a study group initially to get inside one of the characters' pants. Like that was it. And it turns into like this really tight knit group of friends that just like do everything together. And that's really neat. I think there's a certain camaraderie that all those characters have. Um, I think also we got a cameo from Lisa Kudrow, right?
Mhm.
Friends would be a good sitcom. Has
Mhm.
less, I think, of that. There is a continuing plot, but
Mhm.
less so than I think this show here. But again, has the like camaraderie of here's these
Yeah.
friends, as the show is aptly named, and just all the stuff that they get up to all the relationships that they have. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, good stuff with that. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Don't know if I have really many more outside of the
I
things that we've
I've
already
I've
said.
thought of Dead Like Me, but I remember so little about Dead Like Me anymore beyond the initial premise of woman dies in freak accident. After
Hmm.
death, she finds that she is a Grim Reaper.
Mm,
And she was like back on Earth, but in this sort of non-body that's like painted go away green. Like people look at her and they instantly she's like a man in black, like you look at her and you instantly forget you ever saw her.
right.
Like she's that much of a non-presence on Earth. She can never reconnect with her family again, but she hangs out in a diner with a bunch of other Grim Reapers. And
Sure.
everybody is a Grim Reaper for people who died the way they died. So she's exclusively like people who also died in weird freak accidents.
Mm,
And there's like old
that's
guys
interesting.
just sort of playing bocce ball in the park. And they're like, yeah, they're Grim Reapers too, but like they died of the plague. So unless there's another plague, like these guys just basically get to chill out.
Yeah.
They never have to work. I remember the premise, but I don't remember a lot anymore about like the tone of the show or how it progressed or how it felt. But I'd have to give it a rewatch sometime.
Here you go. I would even throw on iZombie on there.
I
Less of
You
a
did mention
sitcom,
iZombie before.
did
You've
I? For
In
this
like the
show?
last handful of months, you've mentioned
Oh,
iZombie for something.
well, sure. I don't know if I mentioned it for this one, but that's a good show too. Um, Less of a sitcom, more of a narrative show, but has some of the kind of wackiness. Is that the right word? The like levity, the light-heartedness of this show here, because that is a like zombie apocalypse. I guess not really apocalypse, but it is a zombie show. And it had there's zombie antics. They quarantine off a section of Seattle or the Pacific Northwest, wherever they are, up there. Um, but it just has like good relationships within that. This idea of like a second chance at life here, or a new life. You've been so transformed by something you can't really do the things that you used to do in the same way that you used to do them. Stuff like that.
Hmm.
Check out Eyes Zombie. That was a good one.
Okay. Nice.
So yeah. Well, let's see here. Now that we've done recommendations, um, stuff we will do for next week and next month. I'll start with next month,
Hmm.
our next end of the month special. I have been wanting for the longest time to kind of color in a certain spot on my comic book reading knowledge that I've just never gone into. I've never read any Hellboy. I thought
me
we could go from
either.
the good place to the bad place to hell,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, we're gonna read some Hellboy. They have a bunch of it on Comixology Unlimited. If you are a subscriber to that service, you can check out. They have kind of the original run. They have 12 volumes of that you can check out. There's all sorts of Hellboy like spin-offs and ancillary new titles, BPRD, Hellboy in Hell. This year's Comic-Con, they announced Mecha Hellboy, which I think is neat. But yeah, I've never read any kind of Hellboy comics, period. So for the remainder of the year, the next 4 months, because we don't really do one in December, but for the next 4 months, we will be covering 3 volumes at a time of Hellboy. So the end of next month, volumes 1 through 3 of Hellboy. Should be fun.
I look forward to it. I really love those Guillermo del Toro movies. I love Hellboy as a presence. But I also have never picked up the original comics.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that'll be good for us to jump into next. However, next week, we've already kind of pitched what we were going to do last episode. So for this next week, we are reading volumes 1 through 3 of Power Rangers, published by Boom Studios, written by Kyle Higgins and I think Steve Orlando and a whole bunch of other people working on art and stuff like that. I've heard great things about the Power Rangers comics. They've had it seems like it's both a great continuation of what Melissa and I knew like growing up, as well as taking it in a good logical next step. Like where would that show have gone if it continued and didn't get relaunched into a million different iterations of Power Rangers? So yeah, some interesting stuff with that. But that's also available on Comixology Unlimited, volumes 1 through 3 of Power Rangers. So yeah, good childhood memories with that one. So there you go. That's what we're up to this next week and at the end of this next month. But yeah, I think that about wraps us up for this week. So Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
I do still have Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit, WILKYWIT, and listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities.
There you go. We should start calling it, well, no, I don't want to start calling it X. Can't even say it right. I'm stuttering so much because I just physically don't want to call it that. But yeah, Twitter, X.
I haven't gotten rid of them. I don't look at them, but if I am messaged there, I will respond to a message there. I will get a notification about it. I really got to set up something nice and neutral, like a Gmail account where people can contact me that I won't feel embarrassed in the years to come to say that I have.
Right. At the trajectory that social media is on right now, we're probably all just going to go back to email.
I have a newsletter.
Right. Yeah. Anyways, you guys can find me at YoKyleSpringer on Twitter and on Threads. And if you'd like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter and at the Whatnauts official on Threads. So please go like, share, and subscribe. You guys know the deal with all of that. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got plenty more videos for you to check out right over there. That would help us out a ton. But yeah, this has been number 264 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.